I'm going to take a quick minute to introduce your final coding challenge for Introduction to Tech. Everything you've completed in Introduction to Tech has been a part of what we assign as pre-work for our Punch Code 12-week class. So if you were able to get this far and complete everything, you're ready for Punch Code. That's saying, hey, you have the chops to be a software developer coming out of Las Vegas. So this is exactly the work that we have students go through, and you're showing that you can handle it. We've styled this final coding challenge similarly to how you would see a coding challenge issued by a company. This is based off of just my experience as a developer. I've done many coding challenges. Many times companies will offer you a take-home coding challenge. They'll say something like, oh, it should be done in 4 to 6 hours, or some will even say, this should be done in a weekend or whatever, but normally no longer than a weekend. And I'll just show you some actual text from coding challenges. This is something a company sent me once. Basically, it's saying you have to use React to build the front end of a website, and they have view less text and view more text buttons, expectations, and API and stuff like that. So it's very similar to what you see with our Introduction to Tech Final Coding Challenge. It's styled in the same way, where imagine you're in this situation. You're in our case, you're applying to Super Hackers Inc. and they want you to make a resume, an online resume, because they're bored with regular resumes. Another good example, let's bring up this. This is actually a coding test from Automatic, who does WordPress. If you wanted to be a JavaScript developer with this company, they're a fully remote company, and this is what they give you. They give you what's called a markdown file, and they give you a bunch of tasks. And look, the task is make the buttons work. All this stuff. They say this will take you 6 hours total. You should use these kind of things. So it's very, very much very similar to how I've structured your final coding challenge here. And I just want to show you that this isn't just on a whim something I've made up. This is something that's straight from the real world. You can expect this sort of challenge. Of course, the challenges that these companies talk about. This is a JavaScript and PHP challenge. The other one was a React challenge. So I've tailored this challenge to be to where your skill level is at now. But if you go out and apply to some of these companies, you'll see what skills they're looking for, and then they would give you a similarly styled challenge. I'll go over this very briefly because the point of it is I want you to actually read it, just like these companies would send it to me. They would just send you a document just like this. This is 5 pages, and say, here you go, figure it out. I'm a little more generous. I try and explain things pretty clearly, and I also include a bunch of links. If I say something or do something that you don't understand, you can click the links and learn more. In fact, many of these links you haven't come across yet, and I expect you to go into the documentation and learn about. So I will say that the core of this resume, you're building an online resume for yourself. The core of it is to have 3 components, 3 features they're called. Photo and name, experience and/or education, and contact me. And I'll take a look at these. Now, I do want to say that when you see the examples, you don't have to code them in the exact way that I've coded them. You don't have to style them in the exact way I've styled them. I mean, except for the first one. Feature 1 does say that it must be centered and you must crop the image to a circle, but that's about it. And it says you have to have 2 different sizes, so it has to be responsive. The other stuff, I want you to lay out however you want. And we watched this video from day 10. This is Charlie, and she talks about how she gets ideas and inspirations for laying out a website and different things. So you can lay out the component differently. You can structure things differently. You can lay out the whole thing to fit your style. Spend some time planning, and go back and watch that video if you haven't seen it yet. Like I said, this first feature is your name and profile photo. It's the photo and name. This has to be centered on the page. That's part of the mission, because centering things with CSS and Bootstrap is kind of a pain in the butt. So we want you to learn that skill, because at some point someone's going to ask you to do it, and it's always a challenge. And then cropping a square image or a rectangular image into a circle is also a challenge. So that's what you're doing here. And I want to show you that when I hit F12 and I open the developer console in Chrome, you're going to watch this resize as it gets smaller. You see that snap? And the smallest width we want you to have something look good at is 360 pixels. Again, I say this inside all of this text here. But just to demonstrate, this is how you would test it. This is what I'll do to test you, is I'll just shrink it down and say, oh, there it goes. It looks good at 360 pixels. Great. And it looks good full screen. So this is the only element. This has to be at the top of your page. It's the only element that I'm specifying how you need to style it, because that's part of the challenge. The other two, feature number 2, experience and or education, style however you like. I give a very basic example. You must have at least 3 things. And these don't have to be companies you've worked at. They could be schools. They could be volunteer organizations. They're just basically entities. We call them institutions. And when you click on one, it shows some text about what you did at that institution. That's about it. And if you're really going to think about it in terms of resume, you might put some dates or something on there. Again, the real important thing to take away from this particular challenge is the fact that you're using jQuery to show and hide things. And of course, Bootstrap, HTML, and CSS, and all that stuff. So that's what's important about this. You can lay this out 3 across, 3 down. You can have a ton of experience. If you've got 12 things, how would you include 12 things on a page and make it look responsive? Again, it's got to be looking good and responsive, even at small screen sizes. So you click on this, the text and everything arranges and everything looks good. So that's part of the challenge. And finally, the last component is this contact me. There's a lot of specific requirements for this particular challenge. So the buttons should do things like clicking on this should change the button text. This is disabled, this button right here. You can't click it and do anything. But when you click into here and then press down on one key, as soon as you press down on one key, it's now able to be clicked on. So I would say, hello, Mike. Okay, fine. And then finally, when you click this checkbox, this kind of error style should go away. So it starts with this style, and then when you click it, it goes away. And then the last functionality on this page is when you click email, it's going to open up the mail to. So you're going to boom, click here, and now it's addressed an email, subject line of hello. But what's interesting is that it's taken the text that I typed right in there, and it's put it in the body of the email. And that's the functionality that we need to have out of this feature. Now, you might have mail to disabled on your browser. So you'll have to Google, Chrome mail to not working. Why not? That showed up. Why can't I open Chrome email links? You can see I've done this search. I actually had to go through this. I think this is actually the article I used to find out mine. So if you're using Google Chrome, Chrome mail to not working, boom, and why can't I open Chrome email links will get you the solution. I just followed those steps. So you'll have to do that, follow those steps. If whatever browser is, that you're using, so it's Firefox, mail to not working, you can figure that out. Most people, it will work by default. You're lucky. If not, if it doesn't work out for you, then you'll have to Google it. And if it still doesn't work out for you, please send me a message. I don't want you to spend too much time worrying about the mail to functionality. Using mail to, I actually kind of discourage in the real world, just because it comes with all those bugs and weirdness that it doesn't always work. But for the purposes of this challenge, what you're really learning is saying, hey, you can take the value of something, click on something, and fly in that value over somewhere else. And that's the power of JavaScript, right? I can just type a bunch of characters, and there it is. So that's what you're learning is like, oh, I can really manipulate stuff on the web. And that's what we're getting you introduced to. So that's about it. Again, style this first one you have to have up at the top of the page, but style these next 2 components as however you feel like. And then don't spend too much time styling this stuff, because remember that you have to execute on the functionality. You have to make these 3 things happen. So this is a good, if it turns out just like this, if this is what you do, fine. If you say, you know what, design's not my thing, functionality is what I want to focus on, great. Focus on that. Find what makes you interested and keeps you inspired with coding, and go through that. Like I said, there's a lot of links, a lot of stuff to read. This is what you're going to be working on for the next 2 full days, and you're going to turn it in Thursday at noon. So I have time to go over it on Friday. So if you have any questions, as always, reach out to me. Good luck. You've made it this far. This is really exciting, and you know all the skills to make this stuff happen. So good luck.